Resolution 12216, a resolution approving the revised fiscal year 2012 to 2016 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan to include a neighborhood revitalization strategy area, NRSA designation for the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative. Whereas the City of Jonesboro Grants Department submitted to the FY 2012-2016 Consolidated Plan in 2011, whereas City Council approved said plan, whereas it has now been determined that an NRSA designation is necessary for the continued progress of the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative, whereas the fiscal year 2012 to 2016 Consolidated Plan must be revised to include this designation, which is included in the fiscal year 2013 CDBG Action Plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council, City of Jonesboro, Arkansas, that Section 1, revised fiscal year 2012 through 2016 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan has been reviewed and approved by the Mayor and City Council of Jonesboro, Arkansas.
What is the will of the council?
I think there needs to be discussion on that. There were several concerned individuals.
I'll move to adopt.
Second. All right, any discussion?
Can we get Heather to come up? And I'd like to report, we visited with her before the meeting. And I think there's a lot of public confusion, and I'll admit I was one of them, that's not really fully understanding what this is and what the consolidated plan is. Separate that from the 2030 plan. So Heather could, and Agenda 21, Heather, could you come up and kind of go through what you told us before the meeting?
Yes, sir, I'd be glad to. I can either go through it or you can ask questions, whatever you prefer.
Well, first of all, can you kind of separate what the 2030 plan is from this 2012-2016 consolidated plan?
Yes, sir. The City of Jonesboro is an entitlement city from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Basically, what that means is that we get our community development block grant funds directly from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so those are called CDBG funds. And every 5 years, we have to submit a 5-year consolidated plan to HUD and get that approved by them on how we plan to spend those funds over the next 5 years. And we did that last year in 2012, or in 2011 for the 2012 to 2016 consolidated plan. At that time, we were unaware that we would need this neighborhood revitalization strategy area designation in that plan, and so they've been gracious enough to let us come back to you and ask for a revision in that 5-year plan. I think it should be noted that this CDBG consolidated plan for 2012 to 2016 has nothing to do with Vision 2030, the 20-year strategic comprehensive plan for the City of Jonesboro. They are two separate documents, nor does it have anything to do with Agenda 21. Is that the clarification that you wanted?
Yeah, that'd be great. Because most of the emails we received today, people were urging us to vote no because it is playing into the hand of Agenda 21 and conflict with the 2030 plan. I just wanted you to point out publicly that it has nothing to do with this plan.
Right, they're definitely separate documents and separate issues. And would you like for me to explain what an NRSA status designation is?
Jonesboro 2030 is a comprehensive plan that we have developed as a city that covers many things.
Correct.
I mean, from housing to health, education, multifaceted things that we've spent a couple years working on.
Right.
Okay, now the block grant money, we've had it for years.
Yes.
And we have to give them a 5-year plan, as you stated, to where we're going to spend the money, and most of it goes to areas that are economically disadvantaged in the city, and they had strict rules that how you spend the money for whatever you could. And so what you're asking us to put into this is a way to make it less restrictive for the city.
Well, the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative, as it is defined by HUD right now, we can only use our public service funds from CDBG to help fund that initiative. What that means is the total allotment every year that we get is about $500,000 a year. We can only use 15% of that total allotment to go toward public service projects. So we have a lot of public service projects, and North Jonesboro is one of them. This status designation North Jonesboro out of that 15% of public service allotment and spend those funds with fewer restrictions.
So what would be some examples of public service, things that we could spend the money for that we couldn't have unless we get this designation? Or it's more the amount of money?
It's more of the amount and where it's placed on the CDBG action plan. Like I said, we can only spend up to 15% of our total allotment toward public service projects. And we have so many organizations in the community that we want to fund, like NAGRAN and Habitat for Humanity and Foundation of Arts. The organizations in our community that contribute greatly to the services to low and moderate income citizens. So if we are able to get this designation, we can pull the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative out of that 15%, which frees up more money for the other organizations and gives us fewer restrictions on how we spend the money for the North Jonesboro Initiative and puts the citizens back in control. The North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative is a resident, citizen-driven plan. They have a strategic plan. They have their own board. They raise their own money. They're making great progress. This puts the power back into their hands, which is actually where it belongs.
So they would petition the block grant money to spend it a certain way, and the city would have to approve it or disapprove it, right?
The funds still would come through the city,
Right,
yes.
and so, but it just allows that board to have a little more freedom in asking for
Yes,
the amount of money for certain things they want done.
correct.
But still, it still would have to come through the council and,
And we would still adhere to all policies and procedures, both local and federal, for procurement and bidding processes, yes.
so how did it get confused with, and I'm not sure what Agenda 21 is exactly. So what is that?
I'm very uninformed on Agenda 21, actually. I looked it up today to see if I could learn a little bit about it. From what I can see, it was established in 1992 by the United Nations, and it has several sections on things that they want to implement, and it's a non-mandated, voluntary initiative, but I know very little about it, and the North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative has nothing to do with that.
So Heather, to kind of simplify it down, the 2012-2016 consolidated plan, this 117-page document, has already come before the council. We voted it and approved it.
Yes,
Where
sir.
the 2030 plan has not yet come before the council.
That's correct.
And that's what we asked some time back to have, community meetings and hearings to discuss what do you think.
I think that's where.
And there are more public hearings to come on the Vision 2030 plan. Others can speak probably more accurately on that than I can. But again, this has nothing to do with that plan.
So we're trying to amend a plan that's already been voted on.
Correct.
Simply to allow more flexibility in the city to distribute the federal money that's given to us.
Yes, and that's money that we are going to get anyway. We're going to get, regardless of this revitalization strategy designation, we're going to get, based on a formula, a certain amount of money every year from HUD. This just gives us more flexibility on how we can spend it.
So it's just opposite of what everybody's thinking, instead of type restrictions. It's
I think so.
restrictions.
I think there was just a little bit of confusion. Nothing
But
we
you
can solve.
received the same emails we got today, correct?
I did get some emails, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience on this subject? Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Pelley, 2209 Indian Trail Street, Jonesboro. And I do like to support my city officials when I can, but I do want to tell you that I've spent hundreds of hours studying United Nations Agenda 21, Jonesboro Vision 2030, and all the documents that have to do with it. I probably read almost every word of the 700-page Jonesboro Vision 2030. And I guess one of the first questions, I know she said she didn't know what Agenda 21 was. And one of my first questions I guess I would have of you is how do you know this is not Jonesboro Vision 2030 if you've not read the 700 pages? when you study all this stuff, you begin to understand the buzzwords and you know where everything's coming from. And I knew almost, in fact, I was on Paul Harrell's program today, and I knew almost that this was time, you needed this designation in order to get funds. And with those funds comes all kinds of strings. And I have already read, like I said, the United Nations Agenda 21 and the Jonesboro Vision 2030. And I had a 10-page paper of comparing the quotes in Agenda 21 and Jonesboro Vision 2030 that I wanted to give to y'all before y'all did anything else on this. And this is what concerns me the most, that we were led to believe there would be hearings on the Jonesboro 2030 draft before it was implemented. If you vote this tonight, you will have implemented a great deal of the of the Jonesboro Vision 2030. And I say that because in the housing section, it has 167 pages in it. There are several pages in the Jonesboro Vision 2030 dedicated to this North Jonesboro, revitalization strategy. North Jonesboro, community development, was initiative, just have to refind it. North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative. You will find many, many pages in the Jonesboro Vision 2030 outlining what all these principles are that is in this revitalization initiative. And I will tell you that last night, just very quickly, I went to Google and I looked up Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, and immediately it came up that the Obama administration is behind all this. He delineates all the things in it. There's a real long article that if you read it in Jonesboro Vision 2030, you will see that the principles and ideas are identical. And so that's why that we are saying that if you implement this tonight, that you will implement a big portion of Jonesboro Vision 2030 without having read it. Now, I don't think, I'd like to ask you this, but I know that's not proper, how many of you read the Jonesboro Vision 2030? You probably haven't, and I understand that, you have jobs. I can spend my full time on it when I need to. Now, here's some quotes from Jonesboro Vision 2030, and what I'd like to ask you is, if you haven't read it, and you don't, I'd like to ask you, how do you know what's involved in this designation? I understand you need it for the grant money, but do you know what you are agreeing to when you do that? And here's some things from Jonesboro 2030 vision that I want to ask you to think about and see if you agree with these, and do you know if it's part of this agreement or do you not know? And one is, for one thing, Jonesboro 2030 is quite partisan and autocratic in its program of quotes. And one thing it says, increasingly people argue that if only government would get out of the way, our communities and businesses would thrive. In reality, however, it is through government that key strategies are envisioned, defined, and enacted. Many people in our community want to go backwards, away from government control, not toward more government control. So the very philosophy in Jonesboro Vision 2030 is to get all the grants you can get and increasing government control over everything. And if you will read it, you'll find it's true. Then on page 110 on that housing study is where you'll find this details on the neighborhood revitalization strategy. And many of these quotes have to do with that initiative as well as other areas. There are about 4 or 5 at least areas in Jonesboro. The Jonesboro Vision sets out to revitalize. And here's one of the quotes from it. Strip development is avoided by encouraging the creation of a number of village centers, termed mixed-use activity centers at certain locations throughout Jonesboro. Activity centers are intended to be mixed-use nodes, campus-style developments having commercial, office, institutional, and high-density residential uses clustered together in a pedestrian-friendly, village-like manner. Now, that brings to my mind the vision of China and how that all the workers work in, live in these real small dwellings and high-rise buildings next to the factories. Now, that may seem far-fetched to you, but if you've read all this stuff on Agenda 21, it's not far-fetched at all. And the pedestrian villages, that's to include a new neighborhood revitalization strategy area designation for North Jonesboro Neighborhood Initiative, and everything I'm talking about is in Jonesboro Vision 2030 for this
It's
district.
my understanding, Ms. Clements just said that we were taking it and just changing the designation to take it out of the 15% so that we would have more money freed up to use on other projects, not to allocate any more or any less money or
Do you know what that designation means?
the designation for what, Ms. Clements?
The revitalization strategy
I
designation.
could probably have Ms. Clements tell it to you here if you'd like it.
I'm not interested in hearing what she has to say. She hasn't studied it like I have
I'm
had.
not interested in hearing about the United Nations. I'm asking you, we have to address this one particular.
It's just an amendment to what we've already voted on. I mean, this.
I understand that, but she also admitted exactly what I said, that you wanted for grants, and the grants will have strings attached to it. How do you know?
We've already received those funds.
Please, I call this for, we're not asking for any more grants or any other money than we are.
Why do you need the designation then?
Because it changes the funding formula on how we
Is that
spend
not
our
a
money.
grant? I mean, okay, it changes the funding, so
It
how do
changes
you know how the funding is gonna be spent if you give this
because we have a
designation?
committee who will decide on the local level how we're gonna spend that money. That's what Mr. Clements just said. It will give us better flexibility to spend it how we see fit, not how the government sees fit. We're not getting any new grants or asking, this is a grant we get every year and we always have.
I know you've gotten the grant, but why do you need this designation and why do you need it right now? I understand, but it's so you can
If you
spend
listen to what Ms. Clements
the money the way the government tells you to
There's a
spend it.
15%.
Is there anyone else? I think she's used her 5 minutes.
Well, I think Ms. Clemens expressed it exactly how it was, simply to reestablish how we have control to spend this money, not the government. We have
And let me make one last statement. She also did say that she did not, had not studied Nations Agenda 21, then how does she know that Jonesboro Vision 2030 is not like United Nations?
The same way she said this has nothing to do with Vision 2030.
It's the way you can spend your money, which is going to be controlled by the government, controlled by this designation.
That's not true.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bowles. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this subject? If not, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item number 6, new business ordinance 063, an ordinance to amend chapter 117, known as the zoning ordinance, providing for changes in zoning boundaries